cheating gone wrong, or how I saved our marriage. My wife Sherry thought I didn't know about her plans. She thought I was stupid, or at least unaware of her growing affair with her coworker Todd. She believed that I would let her toot my horn and that I would put up with her making love to him in order to continue to be her husband. She had something else to do. She didn't realize that I had been suspicious of her for a long time. I noticed changes, clear signs of infidelity, things like working late frequently, updating her closet, more aggressive sex, and losing all interest in all the things we used to care about. I tried several times to talk to her about it, but each time my concerns went unheeded. Sherry, of course, denied that anything was wrong. She said it was just my insecurities and my possessiveness working overtime. So I had no choice but to hire a private investigator. I refused to remain blind to the truth. I would never tolerate my wife cheating on me. I had made that clear from the very beginning of our relationship and repeated it many times over the 10 years of our marriage. So, it was with mixed feelings that I sat in private investigator Jake Sloan's office and listened to his report. I was relieved when he made it clear that Sherry had not cheated. However, that relief was short-lived when he added the word, "for now." As he explained, my wife was having an affair. It just hadn't gotten to anything serious, but it was only a matter of time. Apparently, Sherry and Todd were what they called working spouses. I hated that term. Sherry had only one spouse, me. Some might find that expression cute and harmless, but to me it meant that she was in a loving relationship with someone else. Well, as it turns out, that's exactly what she was having. According to the private investigator's report, Sherry and Todd had lunch together every day, just the two of them. They held hands and sat next to each other. He provided numerous photos of them hugging, sometimes even kissing. I was infuriated by what I saw and wanted to strangle that smug jerk, Todd. In addition to lunches, the lovers often worked late together, even though there was no good reason for it. It was as if they wanted to avoid going home to their respective spouses and siphon as much of our time out of each day as possible. The detective told me that he was able to trace Sherry's emails and messages. I knew this was completely illegal, and I could never use it in a divorce. In our state, divorce for adultery was possible but difficult. No-fault divorces were much easier, and I didn't need to use evidence for that anyway. I just wanted it for my own purposes. Sloan refused to give me copies of the actual messages. He wouldn't even let me see them. Instead, he offered me a summary of what they contained. He assured me that my wife had never spoken disparagingly of me. Several times Todd tried to disparage me, but Sherry wouldn't let him. Well, I guess it could have been worse. Emails and texts confirmed their romantic relationship, although neither of them professed love. As I sat in his office contemplating my next steps, Sloan gave me the worst news of all. Todd's wife was going out of town for 3 days to visit her mother. The lovers decided to take the opportunity to meet up and consummate their relationship. The only thing standing in their way was me. They weren't sure how they could spend the night together if I was still around. Since I wasn't going to leave town, it would be nearly impossible. They were mulling over all sorts of plans. One of them was to tell me that Sherry was going on a girls-only trip for the weekend. She was afraid I would talk to one of her friends and find out the truth. She didn't want to involve anyone to create a viable legend, so the idea was dropped. Then they thought about forcing me to leave town. I laughed bitterly, remembering how Sherry had suggested I organize a golf trip with my buddies. I wasn't interested, which shot that option down as well. Finally, they came up with a new but direct approach: honesty. Todd believed that I was a cuckold in the making and that I would do anything to keep Sherry as my loving, happy wife, including allowing her to have an affair with another man. Somehow he led Sherry to believe that by sleeping with him, she would help improve our sex life and our relationship. He convinced her that all she had to do was tell me what she planned to do with Todd, and I would give in and let her do it. Obviously, the asshole didn't know me, but what surprised me the most was that Sherry bought into his bullshit. She should have known there was no way I would tolerate this. If she doesn't realize that, then she's mentally unstable. Sloan told me that was all they had, so I took what he gave me and went home. I asked him to keep monitoring Sherry's messages and let me know if anything changed. On Friday, Sloan called me and told me that Sherry was going to meet me the following Monday after work. She was going to tell me that she was going to go on a date with Todd on Friday night. This date would start with dinner and dancing, but would end with the couple spending the night in a hotel room making love. She would thoughtfully return to my house on Saturday or maybe Sunday, depending on how much sex they had. Sherry and Todd rehearsed her entire speech and convinced themselves that I would accept her demands. They knew I would be upset, even angry at first, but Sherry was going to assure me that this was just a one-time thing, even though they both knew it wasn't. She tried to tell me that she would have sex with me afterward as a reward for my understanding. Knowing that Sherry and I hadn't had sex in months, she assumed that I would be so happy to have sloppy seconds of Todd that I would acquiesce to her wishes. How nice of them to think of my needs. I only had 2 days to prepare for the confrontation. Sherry and Todd jokingly called it an intervention. I'll be damned if it would go the way she envisioned. I decided I would turn their intervention into my ban. I spent the weekend going through scenario after scenario, trying to figure out what I was going to do and how I could fix my marriage. First, I had to decide if I wanted to fix it. I wasn't sure I knew. As I thought about how I felt about Sherry, my plan of action evolved organically. I decided to deal with it directly and end it for good. When we first got married, Sherry and I seemed blissfully happy. We spent all our time together sharing everything we had experienced in life. She was my best friend and my best lover. Somehow it all seemed to disappear. Maybe that's just the way things work. Nothing lasts forever. Perhaps my view of marriage was rather old-fashioned and idealized. I thought we would be a team, going through life together, fighting side by side against the trials and tribulations that would befall us. Sherry and I had been married before, but unsuccessfully. If that marriage failed too, maybe the problem wasn't us. Maybe it was the institution of marriage itself. How can people expect to maintain feelings, desires, interests, and passions when fate insists on being fickle and finding ways to change everything and everyone? In a world of 30-second sound bites, fast-paced culture, social media, and instant gratification, perhaps marriage, like dinosaurs and CDs, is obsolete. I thought, if Sherry wants to be with Todd, maybe I should just let her. Then I woke up and came to my senses. There's no way in hell I'm going to let her toot my horn. I might not be with her anymore, but I'll be damned if I'm going to let Todd get the upper hand over me by claiming rights to my wife. I was ready for a fight when my wife called me just after lunch on Monday. "Hey, Sherry," I began. "Is everything okay? You never call me at work anymore. I hope everything is okay." "Hi, honey," she replied. Honey? Really? Did she use that epithet toward Todd, too? It's no big deal. I just wanted to make sure you'd be home on time tonight. I need to talk to you about something really important, so I need you to be there. "Oh, okay," I replied and added, "Yes, that's good because I have some important news for you, too. I have to be home at 5:15 or so. Will that be okay?" She didn't answer right away. When she asked that, it was only to get information. "Big news? What kind?" she asked. "I'll tell you tonight," I said, and decided to end the conversation. "I'm right in the middle of my monthly report. I need to get it done so I can leave on time. I'll see you at home." I hung up the phone and walked down the hall to my boss's office to let him know I was taking the rest of the day off. He didn't mind, and that was good. I had a few things I needed to get ready for the ban. I was sitting at the kitchen table when I heard the garage door open at 5:27. I was nervous, but also very angry. I was trying my best to remain outwardly calm while unbridled emotions raged inside of me. I had an open bottle of Sauvignon Blanc on ice and 2 glasses at the ready. 2 minutes later, the door opened and Sherry walked in alone, tossing her keys and purse on the table. I was glad she hadn't brought Todd with her. That would have complicated things. I smiled. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, repeating the affectionate expression she'd used during the day. "Welcome home. Do you need some time before we talk, or do you want to get right to the point?" She was taken aback by my immediate desire to talk. I think she assumed we'd get to it eventually and wasn't ready for it so soon. I wasn't going to let her get the upper hand. I wanted to keep her in suspense and keep her unprepared. She had everything she planned to do and say worked out in detail, so I had to be as disruptive as possible. I didn't expect you to sit here and wait, but yeah, I think the sooner we get started, the sooner we can get on with our evening," Sherry said, coming over and sitting down across from me. "If you don't mind, I'll tell you my news first." "Do you mind?" I asked rather insistently. No," she said hesitantly. "It's okay." "Well, would you like a glass of wine?" I asked. I didn't wait for her answer. I poured us both a glass and put one in front of her. "Yeah, that would be great," she said with a sigh, lifting the glass and drinking half of it. I filled her glass as soon as she set it down. "So, this is something I've been thinking about a lot," I began. "I'm not going to beat around the bush. There's no point in dragging this out." I paused, deliberately trying to create tension. It worked. Sherry stepped forward and stared at me. "What's the matter?" she asked. "I want a divorce," I stated bluntly, and waited for her to get the message. It took about 3 seconds. Sherry's face gave away her thoughts and emotions. First, she was confused, as if she didn't understand the words I was saying. Then it came to her what I had said, and she was shocked. Fear and anxiety were quickly replaced by surprise. She was afraid I might find out about her affair with Todd. "Why?" she asked, afraid of the answer. "I don't love you anymore," I said. It looked as if I had stabbed Sherry in the chest. "You what?" she asked, struggling with my statement. "I've fallen out of love with you, Sherry. I don't remember exactly when I stopped loving you," I lied. I knew exactly when. It was so long ago. I tried to ignore it as long as I could, but lately I've been finding it harder and harder not to face it. "What are you talking about?" she asked me. She looked like she was about to cry. I was surprised by her reaction. "Do you remember when we first got married?" I asked. "Remember how we spent all our free time together? If we went anywhere, a store, a movie, the mall, anywhere, we did it together. It was like we couldn't bear to be apart." She nodded. "I remember," Sherry said. "We both had jobs, but we made a special effort to have lunch at least twice a week, and we couldn't wait until work was over so we could rush home and be together. I missed you so much every day and looked forward to coming home, kissing you, and more often than not making love to you. We had hobbies in common. You made me take those stupid pottery classes with you. Do you know how much I loved doing it with you?" "I thought you hated pottery," Sherry said, looking at me intently. "It wasn't about the pottery, it was about sharing the experience with you," I told her. "I loved every minute of it. I loved watching you do it and helping you. I loved your enthusiasm. It was the same with painting those darned Christmas Village buildings. We bought about a dozen of those little unpainted little houses that we painted together to make a display for Christmas. It was tedious, but we enjoyed it." "Yours were always better than mine," Sherry said. "Remember how many nights we spent together at the table applying paint to the shingles?" Sherry nodded again. "I loved you so much back then. We also spent hour after hour painting those big posters you picked up on your trip to Myrtle Beach. This was long before adult coloring books were in vogue. We still have hundreds of those coloring pens. But like our love, they've all dried up." Sherry visibly shrank. "My love hasn't dried up," she parried defensively. I ignored her and continued. "All our friends talked about how jealous they were of us. We did everything together. We took long walks every day, holding hands. If I needed to run to the hardware store to tuck in the weed trimmer line, you would come with me. If you wanted to go shopping for clothes, I'd drag myself after you and wait outside the locker room." "Yeah, but you hated it," she challenged me. You'd be on your phone all the time. You wouldn't look at the clothes with me. I didn't care what you chose. I thought you were beautiful in everything. I was there to be with you. I could have stayed home and watched sports. We talked about how other women in the neighborhood would get together to play bingo or have bachelorette parties, but you never wanted to go. Remember what you told me about why you didn't participate? Sherry wiped a tear from her cheek. Yes, I remember. You said you didn't want to hang out with the chickens when you could hang out with me instead. Many nights we cuddled under the covers and watched You're Getting Mail. I love that movie, Sherry said, holding back tears. We must have watched it at least 100 times, I said, filling her glass again. I still want to watch it with you, Sherry exclaimed. I don't want to get divorced, and I thought we'd grow old together, take cooking lessons, take ballroom dancing lessons, or just lie in bed and read books, anything as long as we were with each other. But we're estranged from each other, Sherry. I don't know exactly when it started, I said, looking intently into my wife's eyes. We went from eating out 2 or 3 days a week to eating out weekly. Sherry was the credit for that. She once told me that she didn't have time to eat lunch so often outside of the office. That was a lie. She still ate outside, only she chose to do it with someone else. And then, before I knew it, we stopped eating lunch together altogether. I started joining my coworkers at lunch. Over time, I found myself enjoying their company, perhaps even too much. I exaggerated, but I tried my best not to put the blame on Sherry. I didn't want to make her get defensive and start fighting back. This conversation could go bad very quickly or turn into a scolding. That wasn't my goal, at least not yet. And then coming home early to spend time with each other stopped being so important. We worked later and later. When we finally did get home, we were often distant or distracted. Why didn't you ever talk about this? Sherry asked. If I had known it was important to you, I would have tried to have lunch with you more often or not work so late. You're right, I said, agreeing with her, even though I'd said it many, many times. I wish I could understand why it wasn't important for you to be with me. Maybe if I had, I could have changed or done something to make you want to spend more time with me. I think I failed in that regard. I felt like I was taking responsibility for our estrangement. That was far from the truth. I knew that if I hit Sherry with Todd first, we couldn't end the discussion without it getting nasty. I would never make her see my side of things. I'd be the controlling, jealous asshole. Before I revealed what I knew, I wanted her to remember what we had and think about her role in destroying it. Gradually, we stopped doing almost everything together. You started going to your bachelorette parties. I started going to poker nights. You'd go to spas on the weekends. I'd go golfing. Sherry, we could go all day without talking about the weather or the latest news. Our sex life began to suffer as well. Often we were too tired or not in the mood. When we first got married, we couldn't tear ourselves away from each other. We had sex 4 or 5 days a week, often several times a day. I'd kiss you while you cooked, and we'd skip dinner and make love all night. We'd go to the hot tub all the time, having fun all the time. We haven't gotten in a hot tub in over a year. I thought you didn't want sex anymore, Sherry objected. I have no idea where she got that idea. I think she was justifying her behavior by trying to make it my fault. Oh, God, no, I said with a chuckle. I never stopped wanting sex. I'm just as horny now as I was 10 years ago. I just stopped wanting sex with you. I knew that would hurt deeply. She thought she had rejected me sexually, and here I was telling her that our lack of sex was because I didn't want to have sex with her. I almost would have laughed if I hadn't been so hurt. What? Sherry asked in a broken voice. I don't think she expected me to say that. You didn't want to have sex with me? I lost all interest in you, I said point blank. You were a cold fish. You just laid there. It seemed to me that you wanted to get it over with soon so you could get back to something more interesting, like knitting. All this time, I still wanted weekend sex like I used to. Sex with you was boring, Sherry. Oh, good. My plan worked. I'm sorry, Sherry, I said, thrusting the knife in deeper. It's me, not you. She stared at me for a few moments. Her tears had dried, her face flushed. I wasn't sure if it was from anger, frustration, or embarrassment. I refilled her empty glass. She took it and took a big sip. It was only a matter of time, I continued, before we started looking for someone else we wanted to spend time with. I didn't mean me, but she didn't know that. Are you cheating on me? She suddenly asked angrily. Are you in love with someone else? Sherry, you know how I feel about infidelity. I made a vow to you when we got married, and I take that vow seriously. I know your first husband cheated on you, just as my first wife made love to a co-worker behind my back. I would never do that to you, just as I know you would never stoop so low as to try to antagonize me by sleeping with another man. How could you think I would do that? I'm sorry, she apologized. You're right, I know you wouldn't do that. She looked guilty and couldn't meet my gaze. Her hands were shaking. Let's wait until after the divorce to make love for the first time, I stated, clearly hinting that I had a new love interest. Which brings me back to my big news. I've already met with the lawyer and gotten the paperwork done. You should be served on Friday. Wait, what? She asked, getting desperate. I told you that you'll be served with divorce papers on Friday, I said, trying not to smile. It's for the best. That way you can get your freedom back and do what you want. And so can I. We can admit that the last 10 years have been a waste of our time and move on. They weren't a waste of time for me. Come on, Sherry, I said. I think you want this as much as I do. I mean, let's be real. You haven't wanted to be with me in a long time. Our wedding was a mistake. I'm not the person you want to be with. No, you're not, she objected. I don't want a divorce. You can't get a divorce just because you want one. I don't want to divorce you. I want to be married to you, forever. I love you. I'm sorry, Sherry, but I don't love you anymore. This is a no-fault divorce state, so we can just split all the assets 50-50. I mean, it's remotely possible to get more than half of the assets, but that's only if one of us cheats and we can absolutely prove adultery. But none of us cheat and are unlikely to do so before Friday, right? So we can make a clean break. I'd like you to come with me to the bank tomorrow so we can divide the money from all our accounts equally. We'll have to open new accounts, get new credit cards, and change all the utility bills. And we'll have to sell the house. I have a realtor coming on Wednesday to put it on the market. Wait! You're in too much of a hurry, Sherry yelled. I don't know what to do. Please stop. She cried again. Don't worry, I've already packed my things and I'll be staying in a hotel room until I can move permanently. You can stay here until the house is sold. Wait, shouted Sherry. Please wait. There's no need to wait, I said. Right? We don't have to put this off any longer. I mean, we have to take care of everything before Friday, don't we? Why? What's so important about Friday? She asked, demandingly. Well, Friday's the day you go on a date with your boyfriend, Todd, right? Isn't that the day you two plan to spend the night in a hotel together and make love all night? Sherry froze. Her eyes seemed about to pop out of her orbits. Her mouth was open like a dying fish. She tried to say something, but all that came out of her throat was a hiss. Did I have the wrong day? Wait, I said, pulling a folder from under a stack of Better Homes and Gardens magazines and opening it. I pulled out a sheet of the private investigator's summary report and slipped it between us and showed it to Sherry. I pointed to the part about her plans to sleep with Todd on Friday night. No, I'm right. See, it says here that you and Todd made reservations at the Gaylord, Texas for Friday night. That's not, she started, but I cut her off. It's not what it looks like? I asked her, finishing the sentence after her. Oh, do I need to show you the pictures of you and Todd kissing at lunch? She stared at me and the tears flowed again. I'm so sorry, she said quietly. Now I remember exactly when I stopped loving you, I said with a wide smile on my face. I stopped loving you the day I found out that you were planning to turn me into a cuckold with your coworker, just like my ex-wife. I'm sorry, honey, she blurted out, trying desperately to convince me. I don't love Todd. This is just going to be a fling, something to rekindle our relationship. I'll spend the night with him, and then you and I will spend the rest of the weekend having hot sex like we used to. Todd said you'd like that. Yeah, that's right. Revitalize our sex life. Instead of having sex with me, you liven things up by making love to someone else. Does that make sense? No, but... She couldn't even get the phrase out. She changed tactics. Todd said you'd do it if you wanted me to be happy? I want you to be happy, I said. I want you to be happy with me like you used to be. I don't want you to be happy with another man. Are you completely stupid or something? How could you think I'd be okay with that? You should know how I feel about infidelity. Yes, but... She tried to find some way to justify her actions. It wouldn't be infidelity. I wouldn't cheat. You will give me your permission. Not in this life, I said. I know that now. I should have realized it from the beginning. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I was bored and lonely. Todd drew me in again. Bored and lonely? How could you be bored and lonely when we were happily in love and enjoying all our time together? I don't know, but... She started again. Did you ever think you were bored and lonely because you cut us off? You stopped having lunch with me. You stopped spending time with me and doing things with me. You chose to avoid me and put yourself in that position. You chose to spend time with him instead of me. So if you were bored and lonely, you created this condition specifically so that Todd could be bored and lonely. I don't think I did that, she said, staring at me. She shook her head. No, I can't believe I would do that. I thought you stopped coming to my house for lunch. Because you told me to. Don't you remember? You kept telling me you were too busy. And then one Wednesday, the day of our lunch, I picked you up and you didn't even bother to come into the lobby and tell me you couldn't come. You texted me to go to lunch without you. I stopped coming after that, and you never once even mentioned that we stopped having lunch. I don't think you even realized it. Sherry looked at her hands. You were so absorbed in your world that you didn't realize you were losing me. You were all about you and Todd. Well, now you can have him. I don't want him, she snapped at me, looking up at me. I want to be with you. I want us. I want us to be the way we used to be. I'm so sorry. I screwed up. I gave up on us. It's too late, I said, shaking my head. You can't think like that. I didn't cheat on you. We didn't do anything. I won't see him again, I swear. I'll quit my job. I'll go work somewhere else. Please, I don't want to lose you. I still love you. You've cheated on me in every way but one. But that's the most important thing. We didn't have sex. I was stupid. I was crazy about Todd. I didn't love him. I've always loved only you. I don't know what I was thinking. I would have gotten over him and come back to you as soon as I got rid of it. But it's over now. I can see it now. I know it. It was stupid. I was stupid. Todd means nothing to me. Please, baby, please, don't leave me. It's not that simple, Sherry. Why can't it be? I screwed up. I did it. But you stopped me before I went too far. You had already gone too far. I disagreed. Just sex would have sealed the deal. I didn't do anything. We were just friends, she exclaimed. You should have been friends with me more than anyone else, I objected. I have a lot of girlfriends. I don't kiss them. I've never wasted time on them. I never replaced you with them, and I never planned to make love to them and make you accept it. Sherry dropped her head in her arms, sobbing. I'll never neglect you again and take you for granted. I swear it. Please, can't we treat this as a big mistake? Can't you forgive me and give me another chance? This isn't Monopoly where you can get jail from a free card, I told her. You didn't just make a big mistake. You left our love and gave your heart to another man. No, he never had my heart. My heart was always yours. And you were going to give him your body? But I didn't. You stopped me. Don't you love me enough to fight for me? Do I mean so little to you? You meant everything to me. I'd fight anyone for you. I'd die for you. Sherry let out a piercing scream. She grabbed my arms and tried to pull me to her. No, no, please. You can't think like that. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You have to believe me. I think you're sorry, I said. It shows me that you're not exactly a self-centered and heartless fool. Then can you give me another chance? Please, I'm begging you. Please don't leave me. I'm not leaving you, Sherry. You did this on your own. I truly believe you're sorry. Maybe someday I can forgive you. But it doesn't change anything. I don't love you anymore. It's over. But don't worry. You always have Todd to comfort you. Todd is married, she said through her sobs. He only wanted to sleep with me. He didn't want a relationship. I grinned. Well, he might change his mind now. I'm sure his wife had something to say to him today when he got home. She and I used the same divorce attorney. Sherry's jaw dropped again. I pushed a folder across the table to her. The full investigator's report is here, along with pictures of you and Todd. His wife has a copy. Also in there is all the information from my attorney about the divorce and how we propose to divide the property. I suggest you read the whole thing. No, baby, please, she pleaded. Don't do that. If you want to come to the bank with me tomorrow, call me and let me know. I got up from the table and walked out of the house, ignoring the sound of my wife crying. Sherry was struggling with the divorce. I didn't want a protracted and expensive legal battle, so when the judge suggested I see a marriage counselor, I agreed. The counseling helped more than I expected. Sherry and I got in touch with our feelings. We communicated about everything, openly and without judgment. She was able to understand why she had fallen victim to Todd's advances and almost lost me and our marriage. I was able to explain my pain and the humiliation she had caused me. The counselor was proud of our progress. After a few sessions, I returned to the house. We had hot sex several times. A year later, we were back to being the loving couple we were when we first got married. Sherry changed jobs and now worked for my company. We drove to and from work together and ate lunch together every day. We didn't do this because we felt obligated or controlled. We did it because we wanted to be together. In fact, we did almost everything together. We put up a little Christmas village and finished painting 2 pictures we had given up on years ago. We enrolled in another ceramics class and signed up for ballroom dancing. I even found a box of all the colored pens. Much to my surprise, they weren't dry after all. One night, as we were cuddled under a blanket eating popcorn and watching You've Got Mail, Sherry kissed me and said, "Honey, I need to talk to you about something important." I saw tears come to her eyes. I felt my heart skip a beat and I started to panic. Before I could say anything, Sherry continued, "You're going to be a daddy." I smiled and wiped the tears from her cheek, saying in my best Tom Hanks accent, "Don't cry, Sellers." Good, so I'm just obsessed with happy endings. Sue me. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Last chance to save the marriage. I once heard a man describe his wife this way. The moment I saw her, I wanted to make love to her immediately. The moment she spoke, I realized that someone had gotten ahead of me. It was my Samantha, as silly as she was beautiful. I met Sam when she was fired for hacking into my client's computer network by uploading a video of a cute kitty. Unfortunately, it turned out that Kitty was actually an evil, malicious lioness in disguise. She looked like she needed a friend, so I offered to carry a box of her personal belongings while the head of security escorted her off the premises. Okay, I'll admit I thought I'd have no problem climbing into bed with her if I made friends. Fast forward 6 months. Her childlike simplicity and unquenchable thirst for sex won me over, and I asked her to move in with me. 6 months later, we were married. The night before our wedding, I took her hands in mine and said, "I will be your champion, slaying dragons and picking castles for your amusement. I swear eternal love and devotion. All I asked and demanded of her was absolute loyalty." If you ever kiss another man romantically, our marriage is over. You won't get a second chance. No, I will destroy you and whoever was foolish enough to incur my wrath. I love you, and I will never do that, Sam vowed. The first 2 years of our marriage were so incredible that all of our friends were jealous. Sam was doing a great job of being a spoiled wife. All day long, she spent her days working out or lounging at the spa. Almost every night, we dined at Chicago's finest restaurants. I draped her gorgeous body in designer clothes, appropriately adorned with the finest jewelry. I loved showing her off. But one day she announced that she was bored and wanted to get a job. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake her resolve. I even offered to buy her own business, a high-end boutique. Whatever she wants. No, I want to do it myself. Much later, I learned that 2 divorced girlfriends from the health club had sown the seeds of discontent in my wife. These embittered women had lost their husbands to younger women and took perverse joy in destroying happy marriages. Week after week, they worked on Sam until they convinced her that I didn't value her, and the key to her freedom was to get a job so she could have her own money. So Sam set out to find a job in a position that would suit her. Now, a beautiful woman dressed in a $500 dress, she had no problem getting an interview. Her problem came when she was asked tough questions like, "What office skills do you possess?" 3 months later, she has had dozens of interviews, yet no one has even called her back to say, "Sorry, we don't have a position open for your unique skill set." At least that's what it says on the form letter I send out to unqualified losers. But one day, she came home so excited she could barely speak. She had been hired as a personal assistant. I asked her some simple questions, like who hired you and what your job description was. Sam had forgotten the name of the company, but was sure she could find it again. The only thing she remembered was the position involved traveling. With who? I asked. She rummaged through her $1,000 Gucci bag and found a business card. "I'll be working for Andrew W. Carter and Associates." The card was a cheap rectangle of white cardboard, no graphics, just Andrew W. Carter, president, CEO, and a phone number. What a cheap asshole, I thought. What exactly does Andrew W. Carter and Associates do? It has something to do with importing or exporting things. I took my wife in my arms and looked her straight in the eye. "Samantha, I have a bad feeling about this. Let me put it to the test." This led to our first ever knockdown, drag-out argument. "You don't want me to succeed? You just want me hanging on your arm like a Barbie doll." Truth be told, it was all she could do. Sam was stubborn. She kicked up her heels and refused to listen to anything I had to say. She set her jaw and stared at me. I knew that look meant she would rather take a beating than admit she was wrong. "I hope it's not too late for you to open your eyes to the truth." I discreetly had my investigators begin a full investigation of Carter. Sunday night, I received an email with a complete dossier. Carter was a small-time importer of counterfeit products that he sold to dollar stores. Much of his business was generated at regional trade shows where Sam was scheduled to appear. The current sales staff consisted of men in their 50s and early 50s. Sales had plummeted as Chinese manufacturers cut out the middlemen, laborers as they were called in the trade, and sold direct. On the eve of the big trade show in New York, Carter met with his sales staff to mull over decisions. The future of the company depended on this show. There was a widespread idea that the easiest way to increase sales was to have a beautiful woman of short stature make this very short skirt and revealing blouse the spokesperson in the booth. Sam had a closet full of uniform-compliant clothes. It was obvious that Carter didn't need a personal assistant, but a magnet for men. Things were fairly quiet on Sunday. Monday morning, Sam was dressed to the hilt. I complimented her and offered to drive her to work. She surprised me and said yes. I surprised her with an Italian leather briefcase. Sam accepted my gift with the words, "You'll be proud of me." Carter's warehouse had definitely seen better days. It was an old 3-story building. Even the sign on it was faded. Sam looked around the dilapidated building nervously. After a couple minutes, she leaned over to me and kissed me on the lips. It was an act she'd been denying me since Friday. "I think it's here. I guess it's here. I'll pick you up at 5. She kissed me again and said, "I love you." "I love you too," I replied. The day dragged on endlessly. I waited at the end of the block for the clock to show 5 thou. When it did, I stopped in front of the main entrance. Several dozen men in cheap suits came out in a crowd. This must be the sales department, I thought. A few minutes later, several older women left. All were dressed for warehouse work. I waited 10 minutes before entering the lobby. Sam's laughter could be heard in the distance. I noticed a bell on the receptionist's desk and rang it vigorously. "I'll be right out," my wife called out. As soon as I met her new boss, I immediately saw him as an asshole. He didn't even extend his hand for me to shake, just a sneaky smile. As soon as we pulled away, I warned my wife, "He followed you like a lion follows a gazelle." "Don't be silly. He's just a good salesman who's always on." A good salesman. This man sells wholesale fakes made by slave labor. He, like his products, appeals to the dregs of civilization. Sam was silent until I pulled up to one of our favorite restaurants. Tuesday morning, Sam was dressed again as if she were going to a dance. When I asked her why she was so dressed for work in a dilapidated warehouse, she claimed she knew how to get to work and would drive herself. She walked out without answering my question or kissing me goodbye. That evening, she came home excited after a full day of exploring their grocery line. She even had a bag full of junk. I tried my best to feign interest as she described each item. The second week, 3 unpleasant things happened. Sam, still changing her clothes, started going to lunch with Carter so they could discuss the product line. She also started working late with him to prepare for the New York trade show. The final straw was when she stopped returning my calls because they were too busy working. It all started on Thursday when Sam got home a few minutes before 10. I gave her an ultimatum. Quit your job or else. "Don't be such a drama king. It's just a training period. After the expo, things will settle down." I begged her to quit and again offered to invest in her own business. A store in the mall. Whatever she wanted. She again demanded that I let her succeed on her own. On Friday, Sam ignored 10 phone calls and didn't get home until after 11. I was waiting at the door when she walked in. "Are you having trouble with your phone?" Sam instantly turned into an angry fool because I don't trust her. "I would never get in your way if you had a big career." "Big career? You make minimum wage. The jewelry you're wearing is worth more than his entire business." Sam spat venom back. "Why don't you trust me?" "I trust you. I don't trust Carter. I've seen too many predators like him. Besides, what are your qualifications for this job, besides being pretty? Is there a reason you dress like a model to find out about a 99-cent piece of plastic in a dirty warehouse? There's a 3-day trade conference in New York next week, and I'm going there whether you like it or not. Get used to it." "Then get used to living alone, because if I leave, as I fear I will, I won't be here when you get back. Our marriage will be over." "I can't believe you said that. You and I should be planning how we're going to spend my paycheck. We could save it for a vacation in Europe, Hawaii, wherever you want." "Europe, Hawaii, are you high? You're making $13 an hour, before taxes. You can't even afford to buy us a steak on your paycheck." Sam stormed out of the room and locked herself in the bathroom. We didn't speak all weekend. Monday morning, a limo picked her up. I kissed her one last time and said, "You've made your choice. I hope you can live with it." She didn't respond. It took a while, but I arranged for a private investigator to take the seat across from her and Carter on the flight east. The cheap asshole was flying in economy. My man guaranteed he could provide audio and video recordings of their entire trip. I was foolish enough to expect a phone call from Sam to say they had arrived safely. Instead, I heard from my private investigator. They were giddy like school kids who think they can get away with anything. Carter kept putting his hand on her thigh. The first few times she protested, but eventually she let him touch her. I almost broke my phone. Then he said he was going to turn the surveillance over to his assistant so they wouldn't recognize him. I had a lot of time to not call Sam and tell her I knew what they were doing. But that hadn't worked before. So I spent my time planning the second phase of my plan. That same evening, I received a detailed message from my detective. They spent most of the day at business events. Unfortunately, at 6 o'clock, they dispersed to their rooms and changed for dinner. I recognized the little black dress Sam was wearing. The detectives were instructed not to interfere unless Carter was forcing Sam to do something. They were to observe and document. It was killing me, but she had to choose our marriage of her own free will. But that wouldn't stop me from making one last attempt. I watched the video of them walking into the restaurant hand in real time. I called my wife, but she went straight to voicemail. So I called the restaurant and got Mrs. Samantha Weatherstone on the phone. She wasn't too pleased that I was checking on her. I've been working hard all day, and now I'm having dinner at the diner. You had the nerve to call me to check up on me. Well, maybe if you had answered my calls or texts, I wouldn't have had to look for you. Samantha, I love you more than life itself. That's why I'm giving you one last chance to save our marriage. I know you don't eat at the diner. This is the first time you've ever lied to me, and I'm willing to forgive you if you tell Carter you're quitting. You'll have a first-class ticket waiting for you at the airport. Please, if you love me, if our marriage... The phone went silent. My wife hung up. My detective streamed me a video of Sam drinking with Carter. The asshole heard our conversation, and I could tell he felt he'd chosen the right path when he hired Sam. He acted like he owned her, pawing at her while he plied her with alcohol. An hour later, my man sent a video of them entering his room. I had to turn my phone off because I couldn't watch the broadcast from the cameras they had installed in Carter's room. Later, after a couple of stiff drinks, I listened to him talk crap like how unfortunate it was that her husband didn't want her to succeed. He said I was jealous of her success. Stick with me and I'll make you the most successful saleswoman in the business. My idiot wife swallowed his bullshit and ended our marriage. My next call was to colleagues at the convention center in New York. Carter had already made sure his truck had arrived this morning and was waiting to be unloaded. Inside was a booth, the largest and most luxurious at the show, and thousands of catalogs and hundreds of free samples. The booth took up twice as much space as its largest competitor. It featured the best video and lighting effects. A few minutes later, Carter's 40-foot container disappeared from the loading dock. A week later, it would find itself empty at a truck stop in New Jersey. I spent the night sitting in my chair, hoping Sam had come to her senses. The next morning, my detective confirmed that they had spent the night in his room and made love. He treated your wife like a girl of easy virtue. As soon as they entered the room, he pulled down her dress. He then pushed her on the bed, and they had sex. Then he brushed his teeth and announced that he was going to bed. A few minutes later, your wife rolled to the other side of the bed. The detective said it looked like she hadn't slept a minute. I heard her crying most of the night. Trying to contain my anger, I made 2 more calls, this time on the local phone. I said exactly 1 word to each. Begin. The next morning, the concierge slipped a note under Carter's door addressed to my wife. I called your room all night, but no one answered. I guess that means goodbye forever. The detective said she screamed and started crying hysterically about how she'd made a huge mistake, and Carter had better stay away from her, or else... What do I care? I can find much better chicks than you. Now get dressed, you have a job to do. He picked up her dress from the floor and threw it at her. Sam begged him to give her a return ticket. He laughed in her face and called her a stupid cheater. If you want to go home, you better get your body ready to tease my customers. You got me drunk and used me. Sam turned up the volume. I didn't force you to do anything. If you call the police, they'll look at the way you were dressed and realize you're a cheater. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door. It was one of the salesmen. Sam grabbed her dress and hurried into the bathroom. Carter opened the door with his bare ass, holding Sam's lacy bra. He wanted to make sure Angelo saw what he had done. "Boss, we have a big problem. I was in the conference room checking our place, but there was nothing there." "What do you mean there was nothing?" "That's what it means. There's no booth there, no boxes, no samples, nothing. I talked to the guy at the dock, and he said the truck wasn't there." Carter went white as a sheet. All he could say was shit. It took Sam a while to get up the nerve to call me. She'd obviously decided to play dumb, and she'd succeeded. I didn't answer, but immediately went straight to voicemail. Even though I knew it wouldn't change anything, I had to know if Sam was going to come clean about her actions. "Sorry, honey. I took a sleeping pill and didn't hear the call. Please call me when you get this message." After that, she called every 10 minutes. I ignored all of them. Instead, I called my attorney and had him prepare the divorce papers. Carter, meanwhile, was melting down. The exhibit opened in 30 minutes and he had nothing. He started making frantic phone calls. The police couldn't help. Cameras mounted on the cargo dock showed a white truck with no license plate or title gone last night. They said a detective would be there in an hour or so to investigate. Carter called the warehouse and told them to gather up all the catalogs and brochures they had and send them on the next flight to New York. There was some pretty meager loot. Carter spent the afternoon sitting on a borrowed bar stool in front of a cardboard sign he'd made from a stationery store. His sales staff looked awkward trying to sell invisible products. Sam looked awful as she stood alone in the corner crying quietly. Andrew Carter and associates quickly became the butt of jokes among those in attendance. His Chinese competitors, whose booth was directly across the aisle, politely smiled and bowed to him every time they handed out one of their endless bags of samples. A pallet full of boxes finally appeared late in the afternoon on the second day of the show. Their contents, however, were outdated catalogs and last year's no longer hot products. My man said several people stopped by to talk to Carter, but no one wanted to place an order with an employee who, by all accounts, wouldn't work for 3 months. Instead, his competitors got all the orders. By the end of the second day, Carter was broke. He finally agreed to Sam's demand that he let her go home. Carter gathered his sales staff and ordered them to continue the fight, even as he hastily retreated. He told one of them to exchange their tickets and send them home as soon as possible. Sam wasn't very happy when she learned that the plane didn't leave until 10 a.m. and spent the night locked in her room. She dutifully sent me her flight information. Flight 901 arrives at O'Hare Airfield tomorrow at noon. Then she added, "I miss you." Even though they were sitting next to each other, no one spoke. Carter was too busy trying to figure out how to restructure his line of credit since he no longer had the receivables to back it up. Sam looked straight ahead and prayed the entire flight that she would be able to save her marriage. One of the added benefits of working for a venture capitalist is that I have known people who were able to get things done without spending time on paperwork. These are the people who exist in the darkest of shadows, and many of them owed me favors. Big favors. The 2 phone calls I'd made earlier set things in motion. I knew she would be arriving on a plane at 9 a.m. local time. I waited until the plane was in the air and she was out of contact to cancel both of our cell phones. Then I canceled all of our credit cards and transferred every last dime we had in the bank to a hidden account. By noon, the money would be lost. Some asshole in a black coat might say she was entitled to half, but she could go away. There was a knock on my door, and a crew of movers started packing up all my personal possessions for storage. I took all the jewelry that didn't make it to New York. 20 minutes after the movers left, a bulldozer and a small crane were unloaded in my driveway. No questions were asked. They just started turning my $500,000 home into a neat pile of rubble. When they were done, they too disappeared into the fog like the mythical Brigadoon. My detective sat in the row behind Sam. He said neither of them uttered a single word during the flight. As soon as they landed, she tried to turn on her cell phone. She became very nervous when she learned that her service had been canceled. Sam almost ran down the gangway to get to the payphone. A man in a black suit with a sign with her name on it was standing in front of a crowd of departing passengers. She assumed he was the limo driver to take her home and asked if she could borrow his phone. "Are you Mrs. Samantha Weatherstone?" "Yes, I am. Now please lend me your cell phone." He handed her a large manila envelope. "You've been served, and no, you can't take my phone." Sam was starting to freak out. "I don't see our driver," Carter said as he approached. "Get off me or I'll scream." Sam found a phone and called my cell phone. She got a message that the number had been disconnected. She then dialed my office number, which I told her was for emergencies only, and was told that no one by that name worked there. I had already left for a new position in our Los Angeles office. Terror gripped her as she remembered the envelope. She tore open the envelope and read the petition for dissolution of marriage. Samantha, sobbing, fell to her knees, pictures of her naked with her boss sprinkled in. What she didn't know was that an identical set of photos had been delivered to his wife at the same moment. Airport security was alerted that the woman was having health problems, and a team arrived to assist. One of them took her bags while the paramedics tried to figure out what her problem was. She begged them to help her get a cab. "I have to get home before it's too late," she pleaded. They walked towards her and caught a cab. She begged the driver to go faster. When they pulled into her alley, she pitched forward and began to tell the driver where to turn. As they rounded the corner, Sam looked puzzled and then let out a blood-chilling scream when she realized her house no longer existed. The driver wanted to get away from the crazy lady and demanded his $45 fare. She dazedly held out her credit card to him. He tried running it. This one wouldn't work. She tried every card she had, but all were rejected. "If you don't have any money, I'll call the police." Sam searched her pockets and finally found the money. The driver put her bags on the sidewalk and drove off. Samantha fell to the ground. She could barely breathe. Everything was gone. All her dreams shattered. Carter's day ended as badly as it had begun. Two of my co-workers followed him to his North Shore home. They were driving a pickup truck they'd borrowed when the driver ran into the store for a pack of cigarettes. They watched from the street as Carter got out of the limo and, shoulders slumped, headed for the front door. He hadn't even made it to the front door when his wife jumped out into the street and thundered, "Go away, you asshole!" She waved the pictures of him making love to Sam in front of his face. Carter was at a loss for words as his wife pounced on him. Two neighbors came out to see what was going on. Carter's BMW was parked in the driveway, and he was able to climb inside while she pounded on the windshield. "I'm going to divorce your cheating ass." She picked up his suitcase and shattered it against the glass. Carter sprinted across the lawn to get away. He didn't even notice he was being followed. Carter stopped at the bar and ordered a double clear scotch. He washed it down with another. An hour and 3 stiff drinks later, Carter eased himself into the drink as he drove to his warehouse. That same night, the office and warehouse of Andrew Carter and Associates burned to the ground. It was the top story on the news for 2 days. It was the most impressive fire involving fire engines from 7 suburban departments. You might imagine the flames licking the sky, clearing the ground of Andrew Carter's stench. It was still smoldering the next day when firefighters were able to enter to douse the blazing points of the fire with water. The fire burned so badly from all the paper and plastic that it took investigators 2 more days to find Carter's charred remains. There was a large hole gaping in his skull. They found a gun a few feet away that was missing 1 bullet. The body was so charred that the coroner couldn't see that Carter had been tortured for over 6 hours before being allowed to die. They were only able to identify him from dental records. I heard that the pain was so bad that he begged to be allowed to kill himself. They were very careful not to break any bones, but they inflicted the pain with a propane torch, melting his flesh down to the bone. The coroner's inquest panel ruled his death a suicide. Their sequence of events said he was depressed about the missing truck and the total failure at the show, and then his wife kicked him out for having an affair. Then he got drunk, shut off the fire protection system, and set fire to his warehouse. When the flames approached his office, he put the muzzle of a gun in his mouth and killed himself. The insurance company also assigned a team of arson investigators to comb through what little remained of the huge building. Their forensic accounting colleagues confirmed it was an arson for insurance purposes. They eventually denied it to his widow. Because one man could not be faithful, his wife and children lost their home. 20 people lost their jobs. And I lost the only woman I have ever loved. As for the 2 witches who caused all this sadness, I did my best to make sure they never caused anyone else any trouble. The end.